Okay, this is day 33.6, and I love a research day like yesterday when you start out trying to find something in the morning, and by the end of the day, you get what you're looking for. Yesterday, we were trying to find out the narrative of when these wiretaps started for Trump, and then a couple hours ago, this Brass Balls blog, whoever it is, he's got an insight into what's happening in Washington, D.C. He says the Kremlin connection email started everything off as far as the wiretaps. So let's just go through and consolidate the research learnings. The first is that I missed it by a day that email was sent on the 10th to Rick Dearborn from Ericsson. And I noticed how clumsy the email was, just constantly mentioning the Kremlin. Who talks like that? Vladimir Putin's Kremlin, like the Kremlin is actually speaking. And the reason for our push on this is obviously because, as Devin Nunes says, this could easily get buried under the media narrative. And here's Maria Bartiromo yesterday asking the question.
The president read the unredacted portions?
I have no idea what the president has or has not read. Okay. All I know is that we sent him a letter back in June asking him to declassify those 20 pages or more. I mean, if they can declassify, the more the better. But I think the bulk of what we would like to see are 20 pages in the last FISA that was signed by the Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein.
Okay, and so there it is, the 20 pages. But we did find Adam Schiff's 99 pages where we got this letter from the NRA and Paul Erickson. And what I love about Adam Schiff is he, in trying to craft a narrative, he connects the dots for you between Papadopoulos and Erickson. He says Papadopoulos gets all these emails through a back channel. This is the Putin's niece scenario that he wrote up. And then he ties that into Paul Erickson and the NRA, leaving out, of course, Torshin, leaving out the back channel meetings for money laundering, $150 million of drug and weapons money, 150 billion, excuse me, leaving all that out. Just happens to mention this back channel to the senior campaign aide. And this is where the NRA being used and also Paul Erickson processing these EB-5s. So the money's coming in for the weapons. He's processing the money through this meat factory in South Dakota and then channeling the money back out through to Papadopoulos in Cyprus for the weapons purchasing, to purchase the Russian weapons. Adam Schiff puts the whole thing together, and it's a beautiful thing. It reminds me of this one article that Mike Flynn commented on. This is the Iranian connection. So basically, Flynn testified in these classified briefings to the Benghazi Commission that there was this agency that had brokered these weapons through the Mediterranean. They had gotten this Quds force, Q-U-D-S force. They had flown them into, let's say, Cairo or somewhere. I don't know if it was on Mahan Airlines, the Strokes Airlines or not. But they had come in as Red Crescent workers. They had staged themselves as relief workers, but they were actually soldiers. And then, of course, this airstrike capability came in. Were the Strokes helicopters a part of this Libya operation? Again, I sat through the whole thing. It was all FBI. I couldn't believe how much FBI was there. Are they just CIA guys with FBI suits and badges? Potentially, but what Adam Schiff could be doing here is unwinding the whole backstory of how did Mark Turi get cut out of the Benghazi arms shipments? Who was the real person shipping the arms? Was it Paul Erickson? Certainly with Torshin and that letter to the NRA president in 2011 sort of sets this up in terms of time frame to coincide with what Mike Flynn was saying, that there was this private army set up through the Quds force, helicopters coming this way, the Kahan Airways maybe, taking over these relief workers for Red Crescent, setting up over here on the other side of Benghazi, and then coming over and then taking out Benghazi. And then, of course, they split the country at Sirte, and then they make the final push from Tunisia, attacking the other way, General Grange here on Tripoli, with that famous letter between Blumenthal, where he says, I have a plan to take Tripoli. This Gangsters of the Mediterranean article last year that appeared in the Atlantic really goes into all the gun running and moving the money through Cyprus. And is this the other half of the story with Torshin. And as we know, we've talked about Gubarov in the Cyprus and the whole processing money through the Bank of Cyprus and so forth. Then, interestingly enough, Paul Ericsson's father and his mother, Joyce Doris, were these MCI consumer executives, and they came up with this product called Sun Rocket. Sun Rocket's this capability to use an internet phone as well as 1-800-COLLECT. And I know this may seem like a consumer product, but a lot of times the CIA would do these types of ventures in order to create a capability, a communications capability with a far-flung army or far-flung group of operatives for them to be able to make collect calls, for instance, for no money, be able to make internet phone calls, etc. You just wonder if their parents also had this background in the agencies. It could be just innocuous. They were just MCI executives rolling out this capability. That's fine too. I mean, we don't know, but it's just an interesting connection. Same sort of idea comes along with this Paradigm Trading Company, this heavy equipment sales that starts in 1999 that the Strokes are involved in, Peter Stroke Sr. especially, as well as this investment company out of Canada. And it's, again, out of these major port cities that we looked at in Calgary, Toronto, and Montreal. Are they running guns or are they running farm equipment? We really don't know the answer to that. But one thing we do know is at the end of the day, we have some fun. And thanks for everybody for being patient with us. We call it memory consolidation. We have a lot of facts we go through. And what we do is we try to kind of recapitulate that with a little bit of fun and song at the end of the day for our information processing. We appreciate your patience in that. There's a lot of moving parts to this story. The Mahan Airways has just been introduced, the Paradigm, the heavy equipment sales, the MCI, 1-800-COLLECT, and Sun Rocket, etc. So it helps to kind of put it all back into a picture of what is actually happening here. Isn't it really the NRA being used by the CIA to supply these weapons and effect these takeovers of different countries around the world, especially the Mediterranean?